This episode is brought to you by HP Instant Ink. No one is reading your mind, but HP Instant Ink knows when your printer is running low and sends new cartridges before you run out. So you never have to think about ink. For details, visit hp.com/instant-ink Spotify. Conditions apply.
Support for this podcast comes from Verizon Business. Verizon Business Unlimited plans, unlimited data, no overages, and more. Built right for business with the speed of Verizon 5G. Get Verizon Business Unlimited plans from as low as $30 per line. Visit verizon.com/business/plans. Per month with 5 lines on Business Unlimited start. Includes paper-free billing with autopay and select smartphone agreement discounts. Taxes, fees, and terms apply. 5G nationwide available in 2,700 plus cities on most Verizon 5G devices. 5G ultra-wideband available only in parts of select cities.
Every day can bring changes, challenges, and opportunities that can also change your personal or business financial goals and priorities. As a true partner, Sandy Spring Bank can make it all a bit easier. Someone who really listens, understands, and then creates solutions in hard times and good times. We'll always strive to be your advocate, today and every day. That's real banking for real life and real business. Visit sandyspringbank.com/real. Member FDIC.
Welcome to the New Books Network.
This is Kevin Lindsay, co-host of the New Books in Systems and Cybernetics podcast channel on the New Books Network. Today I'm talking to Jose Rodrigo Cordoba Pichon about his 2019 book, Managing Creativity, A Systems Thinking Journey. Jose Rodrigo is a senior lecturer in technology and information management at the School of Management of Royal Holloway University of London, and is also the co-founder of the Technology and Governance Network, an interdisciplinary group of researchers and practitioners interested in studying links between technology and human emancipation. He has a long-standing interest in applied systems thinking. Prior to becoming an academic in the UK, he was an entrepreneur, software developer, and project analyst in Colombia, his native country. So I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you, Jose Rodrigo, and say hello. Welcome to the New Books Network.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation to talk about my book.
You're most welcome. I want to start by saying I really enjoyed the book and have been excited about this conversation. And we start all of our conversations on this channel by asking a little bit about your background. I'd like to know, and our listeners would like to know, what got you interested in systems thinking? Take a few minutes and just tell us about your journey and really the focus of your work today.
Yes. Well, I was doing my computer science and systems engineering degree in Colombia, University of Los Andes, Universidad de los Andes. And halfway through, I was a bit unsure if I wanted to continue because it was very technical, you can imagine, no? And I found myself confused, really, and a bit demotivated. And I plowed through, and just after the half of my degree, there was this course called Systems Thinking. There was this lecturer who's still in Colombia, Ernesto Lleras, and I think he maybe saw me sleeping or snoozing in one of the classes, and he said, "Okay, you need to wake up." and he keeps saying that, and throughout the course, I started learning more about systems thinking and seeing that I really like it. And we started having conversations with Ernesto, and then he became my thesis director at Los Andes. And I ended up working in a bank as part of my project. And I was doing I ended up doing action research. So you can imagine myself at 20, 21 years of age doing this sort of research and using systems. I was trying to design a viable system at that point for the bank. Mm. And when I graduated, then I continued to be in touch with Ernesto and the group that he was running at university. And in my job, I also felt that I was the guy doing all these diagrams of systems, and the other people were doing very, very structured manuals. And I was talking to software developers And I also found that, we were missing something. We were missing something in the big picture. So when the opportunity came, I decided to come and do a master's in the UK, and I had my life back in Colombia well organized. I had a business, I had a girlfriend, I had a good job with this bank. But after finishing my master's, I decided that what I wanted to do was to continue doing research in systems. And it took me about 28 years really of my life to realize that. And I sometimes I say, well, what would have happened? But on the other hand, I feel that I'm very, very passionate about this topic. I have done research and I keep defending the topic. And now in the business schools where, everything is about hard innovation, hard technology, and the pandemic has also given us opportunities to things. But I think systems is still very, very relevant as a topic and also as a way of life, trying to be connected with other people and trying to be ethical in what we do. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for that background. You speak in the book about the big move and the big change. So that this is what you're talking about. That was a big move from Colombia to the UK, of course. The distance and also culturally, I'm sure you noticed quite a dramatic change.
Yes. It's still,
so I'd like to start getting, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'll say that this change is in my mind every day. When I see differences between here and there, I think we keep those memories now, but that's also part of being systemic, I guess. Now we have some memories that we could use and we can exploit as well for the benefit of us.
Certainly. Okay, well, let's get into the book. I wanted to share a reaction that I had to the book, and maybe that'll get the conversation going. Even the title of the book was intriguing to me because it made me wonder, okay, what's the angle here? What's the role that creativity plays in systems? And so I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe we're talking about like a reimagining of what systems could really be if creativity were at the heart of it, if it was the value. And you go on to explore, and talk about the role of the creator quite a bit. So I think that's definitely, my assumption there might be kind of right on, and I'd love you to talk about that. I also wondered, just in terms of how is creativity so like a missing part of systems, and how we think about the more, I guess, mechanistic, the work you did at the bank. I'm sure early on might have informed that, but I was just curious about that. And so talk for a few minutes about like why you felt the need to write this book and why it's important right now.
Yeah, I think through my journey in systems, I heard lots of systems thinkers talk about their work, and one of them was Ross Acuff. He visited the UK several times when I was based at the University of Hull. He was an international visitor, and he always talked about creativity as an art, as something that we do out of maybe our improvisation or out of good thinking, and he was very, the way he spoke was really got you motivated. But when I started looking at some of his books, the mention on creativity was a passing reference, if you like, and the work of Mike Jackson, also from Hull. They developed this idea that you have to be creative when you use systems methodologies, but they never went into what creativity was really about. They left this to the imagination of people. So yes, you have to be creative about a situation and how you can use a methodology and how you engage with the participants, and how you suggest improvements, no? So at that point, I felt, well, I think I better try to understand a bit more about creativity. And I was teaching this course on problem solving, and they asked me also to revamp the course because it was not fitting in a in a digital innovation program that we were designing. So I said, what else can I do here? So I said, well, let's call it creative problem solving. And then I'm going to look for something about creativity. And then I started looking for material. And I found that creativity was a whole new area, with its own protocol, if you like, with its own methods, with its own criteria for assessing the quality of research. And in particular, I came across the book of Csikszentmihalyi, which is called Flow, Creativity, something like that. And then I said, well, maybe I could learn from here, and then browsing through the book and then trying to prepare my lectures, I realized that he also had a systems model of creativity. And that was really an epiphany for me, saying, wow, that these people have been talking about creativity with systems. The systems people are talking about creativity. There needs to be a connection, no? There really needs to be a connection, especially with the word systems, no? And therefore, my task became that of trying to establish a dialogue throughout the book, trying to bring these two schools of thought together, and then drawing on Csikszentmihalyi, then I realized that really there was a whole tradition of let's call it systems thinking in creativity, no? And I was really became really interested in that, no? And then, yes, in the book, I tried to make these links. Whether I have succeeded or not, I think I leave it to the reader. But this is an area that perhaps requires not only me, but other people to tap into, no? Because I think creativity researchers, they can offer lots of things to systems thinkers as the way I see them, and vice versa, no? And I think hopefully this book is a kind of first stepping stone on that direction.
Yeah, I certainly think it is. And one of the things you do up front, early in the book is talk about creativity. You say, all right, let's first examine creativity, and you build upon the work of Frank Barron, Alfonso Montuari, and others. And I think it's really important to sort of set that stage for the book. Many people think of creativity as the artist or the musician, and maybe don't define themselves as creative because of that limited thinking around what creativity is. So I think you do a good job of kind of debunking that, and this idea of the lone genius, again, that Montuari talks about a lot. Talk a little bit about that, just like how like you looked at this notion of creativity and the accessibility of creativity for this kind of work.
Yes, when I started exploring creativity, I drew on several sources. No, in the UK there are some authors, especially from English literature, that talk about the different stages of creativity. No, so they go for the more modern to the most postmodern, and they also criticize that assumption that we have, no, that creativity is either something that comes from the gods, no, or comes and is embedded into a genius, no. So that sort of critical background led me to feel confident about exploring creativity from different traditions, no. And then, yes, I read this fantastic article by Montuari and Purser and they really challenge that myth that you just mentioned, the myth of the lone genius. And they do it in such an elegant way and also so compelling that by the end of reading this article, I just said, these guys have really, they nailed it on the head, no? That we cannot conceive of creativity as something so instrumental in the first place, no? And also so isolated from what goes on in societies, no? And then, yes, I really took that on board to then sort of dissect the work of creativity. Csikszentmihalyi is a psychologist, but he's also a rebel. He didn't go. he keeps saying that there has to be something outside our psyche, that contributes to creativity. And Frank Baron,
Mm-hmm.
with his studies of people, this fantastic method of meeting people and spending time with them, and talking to them, and then realizing that what they score in a test is just very relative to the situation. Then that also led me to think that really, yes, creativity is just more than one individual or one set of traits. No, creativity very different from intelligence, or although there are some parallels in the work of Howard Gardner. No, but yes, creativity opens that spectrum to see individuals not only as individuals, no, individuals trying to do something, even trying to survive, no, and that's creativity. That's the creativity, and that connectivity is really systemic. That connectivity is really systemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that, yes, probably the sort of rebel attitude that you can see in Frank Baron and Alfonso Montuori was somehow similar to the attitude that people in the UK who challenge very, very established ideas about systems thinking, no, and the sort of hard versus soft systems thinking debate, and then going more into the use of critical theory. That also see that as researchers we're not within particular boundaries, no, and we always try to expand and try to see what's beyond the individual, no. It could be a social system that is very oppressive,
Mm-hmm.
or a social system that, culturally speaking, allows for creativity, no. So these sort of parallels may suggest that in both creativity and systems there was this general concern that deserves to be taken forward now.
Yeah, and I love the how you draw up on the work of the Batesons, Gregory and Mary Catherine Bateson, who just very recently passed away. Just again around these the patterns that connect and the relationships with people, and not just people but other aspects of our ecosystem, and the role that they play in creativity. You talk about a couple of lineages, and you seem to have a a preference for one over the other, or at least one seems to guide the book more than the other. Can you just touch for a couple of minutes on the two creative lineages that you refer to in the book?
Yeah, so yeah, there are two traditions or lineages reflected in the knowledge that is being generated and passed on. No, so the psychology angle on creativity is still there. It's still based on the individual, and that also transcends on areas like education. No, now we see that the sort of cognition or neuroscience, they're quite important in understanding how people, first of all, learn, no? How we learn, and how do we adapt, and in that adaptation, how we could become creative, how we are creative. So that is one lineage that's still very popular. Even in creativity journals, you see that's the level of analysis they want to see, no? I like it, and I think I learn a lot from that. I still have this interest, but for me, maybe because of my own background, no, having grown up where I grew, I see things differently, and perhaps the individualism is not as important to me as a more collective view of things, no? And therefore, the second lineage is what in the literature of creativity is called the sociocultural creativity, no? And therefore, we consider individuals just as one element of the whole creative process. And the individuals, we just go and come, no? So we pass these cultural symbols, or we process them and we update them, no? And that becomes recognized at some point, no? Maybe we are not alive for that. So that sort of second tradition is what Csikszentmihalyi and I also see that Alfonso and Frank Baron are within that, no? Whether you then make more emphasis on culture as a system of symbols, or you make more emphasis on the environment, as you were saying, no? That it can involve ecosystems as we know them, or people, or other things, no? That I think the emphasis could make this sort of tradition also divided into subgroups, but the general idea is that, no? The general idea is that we are connected with everything else, no? And therefore our creativity is just a manifestation of how things are moving forward together, no?
Hello, everybody. This is Marshall Poe. I'm the founder and editor of the New Books Network. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably love to read. I know I do. So I'd like to recommend you subscribe to Scribd. Scribd is the ultimate reading subscription service, letting you explore all of your interests in any format you choose: ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, and more for only $9.99 a month. All your favorite things are there. You get an entire library for less than the cost of a single book. No complicated credit cards or additional purchases required. If you're not sure what to read, Scribd combines the latest technology with the best human minds to recommend content that you'll love. Want to change things up? You're free to switch between titles, genres, and formats at any time on your phone, tablet, or computer. And here's the best news. Right now, Scribd is offering NBN listeners a free 60-day trial. Go to try.scribd.com/NBN for your free trial. That's try.scribd.com/NBN to get 60 days of Scribd for free.
Support for this podcast comes from Invent Together. According to studies, less than 13% of all inventors who hold a U.S. patent are women. Black and Hispanic college graduates patent at half the rate of their white counterparts. But we can fix that by increasing participation in innovation and patenting by underrepresented groups. It would quadruple the number of American inventors and increase annual GDP by almost $1 trillion. Invent Together is a coalition of organizations, companies, universities, and concerned citizens committed to ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to invent and patent. Because the more diverse the American patent system gets, the stronger and more successful our nation will become. What can you do to help diverse inventors patent and unleash economic opportunity? Find out at inventtogether.org. Learn more and take action today.
Great. And, in the book, you do suggest that beyond the models, posed by folks like Csikszentmihalyi and others, that there's an opportunity to really enrich the systems further, and how we think about systems thinking and the role of creativity. I want to quote something that you say in the book. Rather than focusing on creativity as the final output or emergent property of the model, we could consider creativity to include issues and processes that might not be directly related to such output, even if this means including failure, shit, or goal shifting as part of creativity. I love this. I love that, and you talk about the messiness of creativity, and we're trying to, I guess, rein in so much of the mess, the shit through a systems approach. And then you go on to say creativity has always had, in lesser or greater degree, a notion of system in it. So, I love this theme, and just wanted you to spend a couple of minutes unpacking that a bit.
Yes, well, let me say first of all that the publisher finally agreed to include the expletives like shit in the final version, because that was really central to the book, to account for things that we really need to acknowledge, no, even if we don't like it. So yes, I found myself that trying to model these sort of elements, the shit, the serendipity, and I found that they couldn't be really modern. No, maybe they need to be acknowledged as part of a bigger system of concern, if you like. But we just have to accept that, no, and that means that failure is also part of the menu, no. What I found is that sadly, maybe we tend to assume that creativity is either you are successful or you are not, no. But the failure, either way, again, we assume that it's part of building success, but in many cases that there isn't, no. And therefore there are other things that are emerging when we intentionally try to be creative, no. Things that perhaps are not relevant for the audiences that want to see, no. And I think that for me is very important. That for me is life in general, no. And therefore they deserve to be acknowledged, even if we cannot model them or if we cannot predict them, no? But at least our own attitudes to these things, they would be present, no? And because I'm an academic, I keep saying to my students, try to fail when you are here, you know. It's a safe space for many reasons, but out there, you know, failure is not part of the menu, you know. It's something that could be punished very harshly, no, and it doesn't need to be. It's part of the whole system of life. So we better make friends with those things that rather than deny them, no, or saying it's not part of what we are interested in, no.
Right. And what struck me is, you know, when we think about systems thinking and cybernetics, the role of feedback loops. And obviously, you know, feedback loops include, you know, the variety, the spectrum of reactions that are going to occur. And some of them will indicate success measured by some, you know, indicator, and others will perhaps indicate failure, whatever that means. And so, you know, I think that put in those terms, failure is maybe kind of a new concept to people who study systems, but it's not a new concept to people who are, you know, consider themselves creatives, who are probably extremely hard on themselves and afraid of failure. Yet, it's often failure that most informs their creativity. And you know, we've seen many examples of that. And as I was reading this section, it really made me think how we need to embrace this as we try to tackle the big problems we've got in front of us right now. We're not going to easily succeed on these fronts, and a lot of creativity is going to be needed to address them. Creativity from a variety of different diverse inputs, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I fully agree with you. I think the world as we see it now, no, it has shown us that there is very little we still know about it, no, and therefore we cannot claim that we have the recipes for continue living the way we do, no, or that even our planet is going to come back from where it is, no. So that requires a humility, in my view, no, humility to first of all say we don't know. First of all, say we don't know, and also requires that courage of trying different things, no, trying different things. For me, this world pandemic has been very revealing, no, that governments have tried things that haven't worked, but it's important to say, well, you know, well, kind of say failure. It's important to keep learning about this, no, and it's important to make sure that we keep that open attitude, no, and also when we educate. I have a twins here, no, I found that, I'm not the perfect father, and then there are many things that I don't know, and I'm not going to learn them by doing the work in the same way that I was doing it, no? So I need to change my patterns, if you like, no? I need to engage more with maybe the homeschooling. I need to engage more with the local community. And these are very important things, no? These are very important things. It would be a question of really considering importance to the daily activities we do, to our communities, and also to the fact that together we can build things, no? But there is still a long way to go, and that's fine, No one is expecting that after 1 year the world is going to come to harmony or
Yep.
total management of COVID, no? So we need to say it's fine, but we need to keep an eye on and keep engaged with things.
You use the term creator a lot in the book. And when I think about, and you have a lot of diagrams in the book that place the creator, in the system. I'd like you to talk for a minute about exactly who is the creator. And, in a lot of systems literature, we talk about the actors, the observers. Does, in your opinion, the creator replace those terms? Is everybody a creator, or should everybody be a creator, in your opinion, in the system?
Well, it's a very good question. I think I use the term creators to account for people who have this intention of doing something about their situation, no? They want to bring a bit of novelty, or they want to bring some improvements to what they do and onto the systems where they are, no? There was not the intention to replace these other terms you have mentioned, no? I guess it's because maybe we see the difference, no? Creators for the area of creativity, but the observers, or even the actors, or even the facilitators, those are terms that are more common in systems thinking, no? And maybe there is a commonality, no? Maybe I found myself being the sort of point of encounter between these terms, also because when I started doing systems thinking, you could say I was a bit of a creative individual, no, going against the tide of doing a very technical degree, and when I started working in this bank, I was the outcast, no. And I think that's probably more less than a role; is more of a stage in your process of engagement with things, no. When you become the 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 ugly duckling, if you like, maybe you could still be an observer, but then you have adopt a different point of view, or you adopt a different perspective on things. So yeah, that sort of difference, I think, is what I was trying to get at, no? The difference of having a different intention or having a different perspective, no? That could also be replaced by other terms, but for the dialogue that I was trying to establish, I think it was the term that I found most useful, no? The creator one.
Got it. So what I'm going to assume is what you meant by that, if I can use a word that you've already introduced the conversation because you put it in the book, is the creator is kind of the shit disturber then in the system, maybe the catalyst for some of the change that needs to happen, maybe the activist, or the other change maker role that needs to be introduced to the system.
Yes, that sounds like a good idea, Kevin. Yes, probably from personal experience, no, also probably from seeing my students, no, people who are not necessarily happy with the way things are running, no. My young students are also very concerned, and that sort of concern is what triggers this sort of shit that you're referring to, no. So yes, it's someone who it needs to be, but we all need to be within the system, no. We cannot really stay outside And that's perhaps also my reflection in the book, no, that I provide some ideas to help people still stay where they are and then try to make sense of it. No, I don't think it's good enough. And even I have left my home country, but I'm still attached to it. And the physical distance is not necessarily a sign of detachment. No, I think we have to continue to make sense of what goes around us and what we feel connected to. No, and I think that's the life project. No, it's not something that maybe you could maybe you could be less connected for a time, but then you can become more connected another time. No, and also in some of the study that I did of creativity, there are some methods that reflect that. No, creators that at some point they leave a project behind, they become interested in something else, and then they go back to the project, or they engage with a different network. No, but the interests are there. No, the interests are there. The intention is there always.
So speaking of creators, at one point in the book, you very generously offer a real honest glimpse into your own life and your own creative practice, really an experiment that you engaged in around just your own life as a system, I guess, you as a creator in that system. Can you just talk a little bit about what you learned and how you applied a lot of this research to that exercise?
Yeah, so the book has a self-ethnography chapter where I go through my own experiences. No, I was experiencing some anxiety, and then I started attending these group meetings with people who suffer from more severe conditions. No, and then I started thinking, and also having read Frank Barron's work, no, and in his encounters with mental health, and I realized that we may be talking about the same thing. No, people with some conditions, they also try to be creative on a day-to-day basis. No, one of the person that I referred to in the book, who became my friend, I could say that he was creative because he really had to play the system. No, he had to get his or her benefits on every fortnight. No, and then he or she had to demonstrate that he or she was playing their game, if you like. No, he or she was having to search for jobs and having to show interest. No, so I saw that creativity was there. Myself, I was also trying to get back to normal. No, and then I also met other people in my university who were interested in mental health as an area of research. So the two things became connected. No, and what I learned from that is how we have still, even if we are at not our best, we still have this ability to connect things from our inside to the outside, if you like. And then we also need to have this sort of compassion to ourselves. Maybe I was trying to do too much. I was trying to run a successful project, and I was also trying to help the people that I met, but then I wasn't helping myself. So I think that it's very tempting when you have a systems view of things to extend your boundary of analysis, no, and your boundary of intervention, and start thinking about the planet, which is fine, and ecology. But yes, you also need to nurture what is at the center of this, no, and the center is you, no, which is probably not. I've talked about this with other people, and they don't like me using the idea of the self, no? But I think it could be used as a point of encounter, no, as a point of inquiry. And then that self is very, very fluid, no? It's something that I also mentioned in the book. So yeah, that's probably the learning lesson, no? Being systemic is good, being creative is good, but also being self-compassionate is also very good.
Well, I think it served as a strong heuristic for the book in terms of how we think about creativity and systems thinking, and how we might maybe frame even, having compassion at the individual level, having compassion at the collective level, at the organizational level, and also the flow that you talk about, which is a concept I've never associated with systems thinking before. But you do talk about the relationship between flow and the tensions and contradictions and perhaps the complexity that we deal with at whether it's the individual level or the collective or societal level. Do you want to just spend a moment on that?
Yes, I mean, flow is a very interesting concept by Csikszentmihalyi, and I have recently also increased my meditation routines, and I have encountered that there is a similarity. When you are meditating, you could enter into this state of flow, and Csikszentmihalyi talks about that state as the state where you are really creative, where you are really out of yourself, and then you are producing something that, yes, much bigger than yourself. Uh, so I think if I go back to using the self as an instrument of inquiry, what I was mentioning earlier, as a point of encounter, I think that flow notion is trying to represent that. It's trying to represent your connection with something that is bigger, which is something that perhaps you didn't have consciously articulated, and it allows you that sort of creativity to flourish. Yes, that's probably how I see it. I also have to say that some of my colleagues, academics, when I talk to them about flow, they get to the point where flow has to produce something, right? Has to produce something, has to help with the motivation, or has to help with the generation of a creative product, but then I think that's only one manifestation of this connectivity, I think there could be more, and even when you are also meditating, it's very likely that you become more compassionate, as you said, towards yourself, you acquire this sort of universal compassion, so yeah, there is, I think, flow and this concept also mindfulness could be explored a bit further, to see what sort of connections they draw, and not necessarily to use those connections for a particular end, if you like. There could be more to it than that.
Yeah, and you brought up the point that you've been trying to engage in more meditation, and you do talk about mindfulness in the book, and I liked the contrast with mindlessness. For me, that was like a different way of sort of thinking about something that has quite honestly become a buzzword in our society these days. But you do explore quite a bit what that could look like for organizations, and mindful thinking, mindful action within the system. As we go on to talking about what this could look like, in you mentioned a few minutes ago that we're operating outside of we're operating in within the constraints of some sort of body usually, and can creativity happen from within? Can the change happen from within? And I really like this statement you made: if as creators we are to live in society, we need to strike a deal with creativity. I thought that was very clever, because I think that if you were to go out and ask most people on the street, how creative are you able to be within your school, within the corporation in which you work, within the legal constraints of our society, etc., within those governing bodies? You do suggest a number of different ways that, in fact, creativity can be exercised within those kinds of environments. Can you talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, so out of the self project, I started also noticing that there were some limits now to what you could be really doing either because the big research project that I was planning had a number of conventions that you have to go through and a number of targets, and really it was also a question of using resources. But in the mental health domain, there were also constraints, and I was surprised to find that there are constraints. There are constraints of funding, but there are also constraints of who does what and who is allowed to do what. So I think our societies, they need these sort of constraints and they need these governing mechanisms, but they also need to consider our individual freedom, no? And so when I talk about the striking a deal, I think it's fine for us to be creative as society allows us to do, no? But it's also fine to challenge that at some point, no? It's also fine to challenge that. So it's a deal because everyone is abiding by the rules, no? So I could be creative according to constraints. I could be creative about even recovering from an episode of anxiety because my employer needs that now. But then also my employer needs to set, or I need to tell my employer to set limits, no? And I think that's something that is often misunderstood, no? We tend to think that either the lone genius can do whatever they want, no, in society as a creator. There are limits to that, no? And also the sort of collectives we create, no, to help us live together. We can also say that they're not doing a good creative job, you know. So that challenge also needs to come, no? And so I'm talking about maybe these sort of opportunities for interacting and talking about these things, no. You will see that in the book, and then I move on to consider the work of Foucault, and Foucault is very clear on that. No, he says we need society to regulate our conduct. No, but there's nothing to stop us from problematizing the present. No, and deciding what is really needed and what is not. No? So in the current situation, we can even talking about promoting creativity. But that also needs to be critically reviewed, no? Because maybe the creativity that our employers want or our organizations want could be damaging in the long term, no? So yeah, I think that deal is still on the table, no? and it's part of the deal to be part of society whilst trying to challenge it in a constructive way, no?
Yeah, you remind me of you do quote Alfonso Montori a little bit in the book, and he's written quite a bit on improvisation, and as a jazz musician, he knows all about improvisation. But he's the first to say nothing's ever completely wild and without some structure within the any great improvisation that you see, at least in among musicians, is within some sort of rules, some sort of the B flat major progression or whatever the case may be. And I'm not a jazz musician, so that may not have made sense. But so I think that's really interesting. But I think the role of people within our organizations and within society who are willing to push the limits and push the boundaries, as you talk about it in the book, is important for change. And I think that's what you get at quite nicely. Near the book's conclusion, you offer 3 orientations, what I kind of took away as tips for living creative lives. And these were self-cultivation, reclaiming failure, and encouraging open and responsible engagement with the present. And the descriptions are great. I love those. I feel like those are things I could write on my wall and try to live by. Why don't you explain, though, to the listeners what you meant by those and what you're really suggesting with these 3 tips?
Yes, with these three ideas or orientations, I was trying to get at the view of the world that could help us improve the quality of our lives, no, with creativity. So that these orientations could be maybe emphasized more, and one of them could be emphasized more at one point than the others, no. But to me, they constitute a system, no, and what I call a system for an ethical living on the present moment, no. So the I is quite, you could say at first that is not very systemic, but actually by cultivating that self that I was talking about, we could get more awareness of how our interactions with others are, no, and therefore it's also about self-care, no, it's also about self-care and that sort of dispassionate detachment from the things that we don't really need, no. So yeah, for me that's important, because sometimes in systems we look at the system, maybe I said this before, no, and we don't look at ourselves, and we try to go very big, no. The failure is just a reflection of acceptance, no, and we are failing as a planet, no. So we need to embrace from what we do, no, and also trying to appreciate that failure is going to teach us something, no. It's not something to be denied, no, not something to be written off the CV. But it's also that, no, and people say, well, failure makes you stronger. I would say failure makes you more thoughtful, no? So you don't do it next time, or you are more careful next time, no. But that's part of, and I think that's also a premise for education, no. That I've been saying we don't really consider failure in our education systems. Now with the pandemic in the UK, people are talking about making the children catch up with what they lost. But that to me is not accepting failure. I think we should just say this is a year of learning, no? And well, if they need to repeat the year, why not, you know? So, but they learn all the things that they wouldn't have learned if there was no situation, no? So taking that with a benefit. And the responsible engagement is probably also saying us that even if we feel very different, because if we think that we are more creative than others or less creative or anyway different, we still need to talk to others, no? I still need to do my teaching. I still need to pay my taxes, you know. We still need to make sure that there is food on the table, no? We still need to attend to our communities, no? So this is also a way of saying, don't be a lone genius, no? If you feel too dissatisfied with the world, don't go away, don't live in a monastery. Well, yes, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but you need to come back, no? Because we all need everyone here, no? We all need everyone here. And in countries like where you are based, no? I think we still need to learn the lessons from those who have left power and people who are coming, no? In this country, we need everyone. We need Europe. We need other countries if we are going to make this world a better world for all, no?
Perfect. Thank you. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation, and we do need to start wrapping up. But before we do, is there a question I didn't ask? Something that you would love to leave the listeners with that that we didn't get to, that I didn't ask in a way that provided the answer that you want to give. So I'll just ask you that.
It's a bit of a tricky question. I've been trying to improve my diagrams since I was working in that bank. So I don't know what you think of the diagrams. An honest view will be much appreciated. I'm also trying to maybe learn to draw a little bit better, but I don't know. What's your view on that?
So that's fine. There's so much I think you give the reader, so many incredible insights from your own experience, but this really creative thinking that you're engaging in around the role of systems thinking, and systems thinking, as we know, has been evolving over the last 50, 60 years dramatically, and I think you help us take a step further in that evolution. So I want to express my gratitude for that. You directly engage the reader throughout the book, and I really liked the very last line of the book, and because you really offer this book, I think, as a gift, and there's so many different creative angles that we as individuals and collectively can take. So can you just read us that last line from the book?
It's the one on page 126, is that right?
That's right.
So, yes, I finished with some letters to my children. And I said, I am now letting go of this journey to where it wants to continue, with or without me.
And I think that is really powerful, considering this follows the bedtime stories that you have included, messages for your children. And we're not going to read those because we don't have time. So listeners, you'll need to buy the book and read those. I think we all need a bedtime story. So thank you for that. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today about managing creativity, a systems thinking journey. This has been a great conversation, a much needed conversation we need to be engaging in, a very important conversation for me, and a great way for me to start my day here on the West Coast of North America as you finish your day and begin your weekend over in the UK. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been a pleasure, and I have enjoyed the conversation. And thank you for the interest shown in the book. It's great to see that it's been helpful to you and hopefully to other people. And yes, wish you a very good weekend. And here we're starting to see the sunshine now again. So yes, I hope that's a good way of ending the week.
That sunshine is a good sign. Well, this is Kevin Lindsay. You've been listening to my conversation with Jose Rodrigo Cordoba Pachon on the New Books in Systems and Cybernetics podcast channel. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you next time.